Hello, friends. We are very interested to know which cities you are listening to us from, so quickly like and write in the comments where you are from. Also share what shocking stories happened in your city or maybe even with you personally. Subscribe because the next story could be about your city or even your personal drama. Now let's dive into a new exciting story. The alarm went off at 6:30 a.m. As casually as it had been for the last 10 years that Tom and Ashley Weston had lived together in their home in the Chicago suburbs. The sleeping area was quietly waking up. Someone was walking their dogs, the windows of neighboring houses began to glow yellow. Silhouettes of birds flashed outside the window, looking for breakfast on a small lawn. Tom reached over to the bedside table, feeling for his phone. My glance scanned the screen, several notifications, a couple of letters from colleagues. Nothing critical, he noted, standing up. As he flipped through his notes, he noticed out of the corner of his eye that Ashley had already gotten up and gone to the bathroom. "Good morning," Tom said quietly, knowing that they couldn't hear him in the bathroom. He didn't repeat it. In the relationship with my wife, a kind of even, slightly cold rhythm had long reigned, in which there was no place for sentimental "hello, darling," or "how did you sleep?" Rather, a short "good morning" without an answer. Tom, a 35-year-old cybersecurity engineer, was not an emotional person. He didn't have gray hair yet, but thin wrinkles appeared at the corners of his eyes from constant stress. The work sphere required concentration and clarity, and the home environment was increasingly slipping into routine. 15 minutes later, Ashley came out of the bathroom, dressed in a robe and with a towel wrapped around her hair. She closed her eyes, as if testing how deep the shadows were beneath them. "The morning meeting was postponed to 8, she said without looking up. "Are you going to the office, or will you be from home?" "From home," Tom answered briefly. "We have a couple of video calls with the central office in San Francisco, and there is serious documentation there. It's easier for me to concentrate when no one is bothering me." "It's clear." A short pause hung between them. Ashley glanced casually at her husband. He was standing by the window, slightly slouched, as if thinking about something of his own, as always. Previously, she considered this detachment a sign of his inner depth. Now it rather irritated her. There was too much icy indifference in him. "I'll arrive in the evening, probably late," she added. "Presentation of a new marketing project. Afterwards, you may have to stay in the office or at the bar with colleagues." "Okay," Tom answered just as evenly. "Let me know if anything changes." Silence again. She walked past, the smell of shower gel remaining as a thin trail. Tom once loved this scent, but now he felt it as just another detail of everyday life. In the kitchen, Ashley quickly made coffee. One for myself, the other for my husband. But then she suddenly stopped, as if she had changed her mind, and put Tom's mug back in the closet. "He'll do it himself," she muttered under her breath. Her thoughts were not currently occupied with her husband. A much more pressing question was how today's planning meeting would go under the leadership of Joanna Bartlett, director of the marketing department. For Ashley, the name became almost synonymous with the word obstacle. From the moment Ashley arrived at Lexontech 4 years ago, she encountered Joanna's monolithic personality. She had her own way of managing, tough, specific, uncompromising. Many respected her, some were afraid, but Ashley perceived her as a personal enemy because exactly a year ago, when the position of senior brand manager became vacant, her place was given to another employee. "Even though I had the best presentation," Ashley was angry, "she's picking on me on purpose." She took a sip of hot coffee and winced, her lips burned. The phone on the table vibrated. Ashley glanced at the screen. A message from her friend and colleague Laura. "I'll be in the office soon. Don't forget about the morning pitch to the heads of departments. I'm waiting for your shine." A subtle feeling of pride crept into Ashley's soul. Yes, she was going to shine today, approve your project, bypass Joanna's strict boundaries, and something else. Remembering this, she smiled a little predatorily. "Joanna doesn't even know how I'm flanking," she thought. What exactly were we talking about? Vague, yet pleasant, pictures appeared in my head. Meanwhile, Tom was wandering around the house. He stopped at the large mirror in the corridor, looking at his reflection. There was no gray hair, but his look was somewhat tired. He's 35, but feels like he's 50. It's not that he's unhappy, no. He just didn't have the same fire in his eyes that he had in the early days of his life with Ashley. When did we become such strangers? Tom sometimes asked himself, but he couldn't find an answer. Over the years, he had gotten used to not discussing feelings. Ashley, more emotional and expressive, expressed complaints more often, but they both seemed to have run out of desire to listen to each other. Tom dressed in his usual jeans and t-shirt. Most importantly, it was comfortable. If you need a video call, a jacket will be thrown on top. He went to the kitchen and wanted to pour some coffee, but noticed that the coffee pot was empty. "So she already drank and left," he said quietly. There were crumbs of toast and a drop of spilled coffee on the table. A couple of years ago, he would have taken this as a cute little carelessness, but now he simply wiped the table with a napkin and sighed. At 7:30, Ashley was already rushing by car to the office. Her head was busy with thoughts about the planning meeting and, more importantly, about the evening meeting. Several unread notifications appeared on the phone panel, including one from a certain B. She glanced quickly and grinned. "B, thought about you last night. I hope your day is great. I can't wait to see you again." She clicked view later, but the smile never left her face. Yes, she had her own little secret adventure. Well, sometimes life throws up surprises. When I arrived at the Lexontech building, a high-rise glass monster on the outskirts of Chicago, the sun was already hitting the mirrored facades. The parking lot was almost full. Ashley backed the car up against the pole, making sure it was level. She grabbed her bag, threw lipstick and a notepad into it, and walked out, walking confidently. The offices were located along the corridor in a ring around a large open space. The Lexontech office was famous for its technologies: electronic pass system, holographic displays, security cameras. Security was high, partly because they were working on large corporate data. On the way to the elevator, Laura, a pleasant blonde in her 30s, caught up with her. Always fashionably dressed, with her phone at the ready. "Hey, how are you feeling?" Laura asked, peering into Ashley's face. "I feel the drive today," Ashley nodded. "I want to show them all, including Bartlett, that you can do something cooler than template presentations." "Yeah, come on. I took your place on the screen. Just be prepared. They say Joanna got off on the wrong foot today." They exchanged conspiratorial glances. Laura knew her friend's dislike for the boss. Sometimes she spurred her on, sometimes she called for caution. After all, Joanna is not the kind of person you should joke with. "But I don't care," Laura added. "My focus now is on external communications and not on the internal kitchen, but I will support you if necessary." They exited the elevator on the 15th floor. The sign, "Marketing Department PR Branding," sparkled in chrome letters. Laura turned into her office, and Ashley walked into the conference room where the morning meeting was to take place. The room was spacious. There was a large touch screen on the wall for presentations, and in the center there was a long table at which up to 20 people could sit at the same time. Some have already taken their places. At the end of the table, closer to the projector, sat Joanna Bartlett herself. A middle-aged figure, trim, with neatly styled brown hair and piercing gray eyes. When Ashley entered, Joanna only glanced at her, nodded almost emotionlessly, and continued to study some papers. The boss's gaze always made Ashley want to straighten up and raise her voice. But she calmed herself down by mentally repeating, "I'll show you what I can do." "Good morning," Ashley said formally. There was no good response. Joanna just nodded. The rest of the employees, about 10, looked at each other, and then someone quietly said, "Hello," or "Good morning." The meeting started promptly at 8. Joanna set the tone. She quickly went through the status of current projects, asked analysts about numbers, and gave short instructions. Her speech was tough and specific. "So," she said, raising an eyebrow when it came to Ashley's new campaign, You wanted to introduce your concept for an advertising collaboration with call centers, right? Yes, Ashley stood up and turned on the screen. Let me present the key points and visual elements. Slides changed on the screen. Ashley talked about the idea, showed graphs and examples from the industry. She put her soul into this project and wanted to present it brightly. Several times I caught my eye as my colleagues nodded in approval. But when she finished, there was a moment of silence, and Joanna said, "So, interesting. But this does not quite coincide with our strategy for the quarter. Our key goal is to strengthen the B2B sector, and your campaign hits retail customers. Supplement with an analysis of corporate partners, then maybe we can return to the discussion." Ashley's fists clenched behind her back. She expected Joanna to say, "Okay, let's test it," or at least to show some enthusiasm, but it sounded like a cold refusal. "Can I clarify the details?" Ashley asked. "After all." "At it," Joanna repeated, pushing her laptop away. "That's all. Let's move on." After the end of the meeting, colleagues began to disperse. Someone supported Ashley with the words, "The idea is cool. We just need to take into account the nuances." But Ashley only nodded in response. Resentment, anger, a bitter feeling burned in her chest, as if again she was not allowed to prove herself because of some bureaucratic pretext. "He's cutting me down again," she thought, stopping at the window of the conference room. Laura appeared nearby, quietly asking, "How are you?" "How? I don't know, it's evil." "She's unhappy again," Ashley blurted out bitterly. "Do you think this is an accident?" "No, she deliberately stifles my initiatives." "Maybe we should wait, do a B2B review, and approach her again." "That's the problem, Lore. She wants me to go around begging for her approval. Tried to please, and I don't want to be humiliated." "I understand." Laura bit her lips, then suggested, "Listen, let's go to lunch together and unwind. Can you tell us what's new in your personal life?" She winked meaningfully. Laura knew about her friend's secret, although she herself found it quite risky, but she liked the drama of the situation. "Okay, let's go. Let's have a snack," Ashley sighed. "I need to let off steam, otherwise I'll explode right in the office." They left the hall, leaving Joanna behind her laptop, who seemed to be typing something without paying attention to them, or she pretended to. Lunch in the Lexicon corporate cafeteria was usually a lively affair. Dozens of employees, including programmers, marketers, lawyers, engineers, and administrators, all crowded around the hot food counter or sat at tables discussing work issues. Ashley walked with Laura, holding a tray. Today was Italian cuisine day, and the menu included pasta bolognese, lasagna, and various salads. The smells mixed, the noise of voices filled the room. "Let's sit there, by the window," Laura suggested, looking around. They found a free table and sat down. Laura tossed her hair over her shoulder, took a sip of crushingly hot coffee, and asked, wincing slightly, "So, you still have this interesting story going on with, what's his name, Brad?" "Quiet," Ashley hissed, looking around. "It's too crowded here." However, seeing that no one was listening, she leaned towards her friend and continued almost in a whisper. "Yes, everything is going according to plan. Last night, we met at a bar near Lincoln Park. He was so inspired." Laura snorted quietly. "Well, it's not surprising with Brad. Joanna Bartlett's husband, that's all. You, of course, chose a person for petty revenge." "Don't call it petty," Ashley snapped. "For me, this is fundamental. And if she wants to act like I'm worthless, then her husband will have the opportunity to evaluate who I really am." There was evil satisfaction in the voice. Laura just shook her head. "Just be careful, okay? I don't even want to imagine what will happen if she finds out. This is a disaster." "He won't," Ashley said coldly, taking a sip of water. "I'm not a fool. Brad and I communicate from personal phones. We correspond only in encrypted chats. We meet in places where there are no colleagues. And in general, he is a lawyer himself. He understands how to keep everything secret." "Well, I hope so," Laura sighed. "And Tom?" Ashley looked away, as if she was upset that Laura had even mentioned her husband. What Tom? He lives his own life, in his own technologies. He has no time for me. We have been, like neighbors for a long time. But he's still your husband, Laura noted. In any case, this is treason. Ashley looked out the window where employees were walking with lunch boxes. I'm tired of feeling underappreciated. Not only at work, but also at home. All my life I have put so much effort into being needed, important, the brightest. And what? Tom looks through me. And this Bartlett is dragging my career down. To be honest, sometimes I wish. Well, they would both be fired from my life. It sounded bitter, but Laura realized that her friend was on edge. Listen, don't get worked up like that. Just know that the risk is great. As they were finishing lunch, one of the colleagues approached the table, a tall guy in a shirt with rolled-up sleeves, perhaps an employee of the PR department. Ashley, hi, he said. I'm just here for a few words. We just have a meeting on outdoor advertising. Ashley looked up and smiled tightly. Hey, Mike, is anything urgent? Yes, we wanted to clarify if you have fresh KPI data for the new campaign. If so, email me, okay? Okay, I'll send you after lunch. The guy left, and Laura leaned over and said in a whisper, Well, you see, it's impossible without you. Your ideas are in demand. Maybe you could take a step towards Joanna after all. No way, Ashley muttered. What else? Lunch was almost over, but there was already tension in the air. Several people who usually greeted Ashley with pleasure now nodded curtly. Laura noticed this briefly and frowned. Don't you notice that some people are starting to look at you strangely, like they're discussing something behind your back? Ashley looked around and shrugged. Yes, they all love to gossip. Never mind. But inside she was slightly worried. Maybe someone has already guessed about her game with Brad? Or is it just that the stress of the meeting with Joanna rubs off on everyone else? Returning to her workplace, Ashley opened her mail and flipped through several letters. One of them was from Brad from a personal address, the title, Meeting Follow-Up. She smiled a typical disguise. Inside is a short message. I can't stop thinking about you. Are you planning to be in town this evening? We can cross paths. Of course, she replied. The time and place have come. Having sent the letter, she breathed a sigh of relief, a feeling of secret adrenaline, a wave that gives strength. Then she opened a new letter from Laura. I hope everything will be okay for you. Say, will you go to that networking event on Friday? Ashley automatically typed the answer. I don't know yet. It all depends on how the situation with our wonderful leadership is resolved. I was about to click send, but suddenly froze when I saw that I almost clicked reply to all. There were several people in the copy. Wow, she muttered. That would have been a stupid mistake. She carefully pressed reply, not everyone. The letter flew only to Laura. A barely noticeable tremor passed through her fingers. Be careful, as if a whisper was heard inside. Meanwhile, at the other end of the 15th floor, in the cybersecurity department, Tom was summing up the results of the next systems audit. He finally decided to come to the office. His workplace was by the window, littered with technical documents, encryption schemes, and a list of vulnerabilities. Volume. His colleague, a 40-year-old man named Greg, called out. You're too thoughtful today. Everything is fine? Yes, Greg, everything is fine. Tom looked up from the monitor. Just thoughts. You have a report over there on the server logs that needs to be completed, remember? By noon, otherwise the lawyers won't have time to check the internal correspondence. Yes, now, Tom nodded. He began typing, checking the message chains that flowed through the corporate system, looking for potential anomalies. The work was routine, but required accuracy. While the script ran through the selection, Tom thought for a moment about his family. What's up with Ashley? Have they ever been closer before? Yes, they were once an almost perfect couple, and now he feels how everything is falling apart. But he didn't know how to fix it. He was never good at emotional conversations. Immediately after lunch, a new meeting, a new bustle. The hours passed, inexorably approaching evening. At 4 p.m., Ashley was sitting on another short call with the advertising department when a notification came from Brad. Today, 7 p.m., the same bar near Lincoln Park. We'll wait. She felt a rush of adrenaline. Yes, that means everything will go according to plan. A couple of cocktails, a little flirting, and she will forget about Joanna's cold gaze, at least for the evening. She wondered, I wonder if this meeting will be just a distraction, or will I tell him how his wife dumped me again? The thought of annoying Joanna through her husband was uplifting. Strong woman, huh? And my husband is running towards me. At the end of the workday, Ashley grabbed her bag and threw it in the back seat of the car. Her phone vibrated. Message from Laura, good luck today, take care. Ashley nodded as she read. Then she started the car and drove out of the parking lot, looking at the reflection in the mirror. A beautiful, confident woman, lips made up, a mysterious smile. I will achieve my goal anyway, she thought, both in career and in personal relationships. She touched the gas pedal, feeling her anger at Joanna mixed with inner excitement. I know how to achieve goals. They will find out more about this. The bar near Lincoln Park that he and Brad frequented was called Urban Starlight. Nothing special twilight, several tables, a counter with a huge selection of whiskey, beer, and cocktails. However, the location was convenient in that Lexon Tech employees did not come here. The area was far from the office, and the audience here was mainly creative, young people, freelancers. It was nearly 7 in the evening when Ashley walked in. She quickly looked around and saw a familiar figure at the farm table. Brad is a fit man, about 40, neat hair, calm smile. She immediately noted that he noticed her and raised his glass in greeting. Hello, Ashley said, sitting down on the sofa opposite. Glad to see you. Me too, he extended his hand to her. How was your working day? Don't ask. Ashley rolled her eyes. Still the same Joanna. Freezes me, ignores me. The project was cool, though. Brad nodded, taking a sip of bourbon. Well, she has a tough style. She's like that at home, too. Always on edge, while trying to control everything. I can imagine, Ashley grinned. So what about your family affairs? Yes, as usual, Brad shrugged. Tell me, Ashley said slyly, moving a little closer. Why did she captivate you so much? He looked at her intently, his hand lay on her palm. Can I not talk about her now? I prefer to discuss how lucky I am to have met a woman like you. Ashley smiled. Once such words from another man would have caused her horror and a feeling of guilt in front of her husband, but now, her heartbeat quickened, the feeling of control grew. She felt in control of the situation. They ordered more cocktails, and the bartender brought something bright with pieces of lime. Let's drink to victory over any obstacles, Ashley said, raising her glass. With pleasure, Brad clinked glasses with her. At first, they talked about work, about how much paperwork there is for legal consultants, about the upcoming corporate reforms. Then they discussed life, how difficult it is to find peace in a big city now, how boring it is to be in a marriage without a spark. Brad said that his marriage with Joanna cracked long ago. They live formally. Ashley said that everything with Tom had calmed down a long time ago. They were like neighbors. The sounds, voices, and music of the bar became the background. They sat closer and closer, their hands sometimes touching. Just don't forget that we can't advertise our meetings, Brad reminded. I have a reputation, and in the company. I'm not going to tell anyone, Ashley chuckled. Although sometimes I want to throw it in her face that her ideal husband prefers another woman. Brad grinned, but then said seriously, You're risky, I like it. But be careful. Joanna may not know, but she is not stupid. Oh, don't worry, I'm neat. They talked a little more, and then he suggested, maybe we can go to my place. I have an apartment in the center that I rent for work purposes. I don't want to go back to this cold house now. Ashley looked at her watch and saw that it was already 8 o'clock in the evening. Tom is most likely sitting at home, immersed in his files. She replied, Let's go. I'll just warn you that I'll be staying at a friend's house, so there won't be any questions. She wrote Tom a short message. I'll be late, don't wait up. We're having a bachelorette party with Laura. And she pressed send, experiencing a strange feeling of triumph and at the same time a slight pang of conscience. But soon this feeling gave way to anticipation. In downtown Chicago, they parked at a high-rise with a concierge. Brad led her into the elevator and took her to the 17th floor. I opened the apartment door. Neat furnishings, inexpensive furniture, but everything was orderly and clean. Typical bachelor pad, Ashley thought. She took off her jacket and threw it on the sofa, feeling slightly dizzy from the cocktails. Brad walked over and put his arm around her waist. They made eye contact. She reached over and kissed him. His fingers ran through her hair and his hands slid down her back. It was brighter than anything Tom had touched in years, and she suddenly felt a strong desire to humiliate Joanna even more. Now I'm in control of the situation, the thought flashed. They spent several hours in the apartment. Conversations were interspersed with moments of intimacy. Ashley even took a couple of photos with her personal phone, both as a keepsake and for Laura to show off. Just don't forget, no information leakage, Brad warned, seeing her clicking the camera. Relax, everything is password protected. And who needs it? Ashley snorted. This is just my little triumph. By midnight, Ashley began getting ready to leave. Brad offered to call her a taxi, but she said that she would rather go herself so as not to show off his number. Come on, he kissed her goodbye. I'll look forward to our next meeting, and then we'll see. She smiled and walked out, feeling euphoric. As she drove into her suburban home, she noticed a light was on in the living room window. Tom is probably not sleeping. It briefly flashed in my head. She entered quietly, trying not to let the door creak. But Tom heard it anyway and went out into the hallway. It's late today, he said. Yes, Ashley answered evenly, but was slightly out of breath from sudden excitement. I hope he doesn't smell someone else's perfume or anything, she thought. Is your friend okay? Tom asked, since it's a bachelorette party. Yes, she has. Minor problems, Ashley thought up as she walked. I helped her sort out, well, women's conversations. Tom nodded without saying anything. He didn't look suspicious, rather indifferent. Maybe he's just tired. Okay, I'll go to bed, she said. You also rest, Tom. Yeah, he responded briefly. His voice sounded calm as always, but somewhere in his chest a prickly thought stirred. She hardly looks at me. Always comes late. Maybe we really have lost everything. That night, Ashley couldn't sleep for a long time, replaying the meeting with Brad in her head. The thought came back again and again of what it would be like if one day Joanna found out. Most likely, she would simply explode and throw her out of the company, but Ashley was sure that everything was under control. Tom, lying next to him, breathed quietly in the darkness. It seems he fell asleep a long time ago. Maybe we're both just tired, she thought. But that's his problem. I live my life to the fullest. The next morning started off more tense. Ashley woke up and immediately grabbed her phone to check her messages. Brad only texted good night at 1 in the morning. Laura threw off some wink stickers. Nothing urgent. Tom was already on his feet. She heard him making coffee downstairs. She grinned. Apparently, he decided to take the initiative or simply couldn't find milk. Going down to the kitchen, she saw that her husband was actually preparing coffee for two mugs, a steaming coffee maker. Would you like some toast? He asked. Yeah, do it, she answered absent-mindedly, checking her work email on her phone. Tom looked at her and said nothing, started frying bread. The kitchen smelled of morning comfort, but some kind of cold slipped between them, as if they were two people living in the same space, but having nothing in common. Ashley wasn't as enthusiastic about driving to the office today. She had a full day of meetings ahead of her, and her dissatisfaction with Joanna was swirling in her head. But at the same time, she thought, I'll have to write to Brad in the evening, find out his plans. Maybe we'll see you at the end of the week. In the parking lot, She came face to face with Joanna Bartlett herself. She was just getting out of her car, an expensive crossover. The glances crossed. "Good morning, Ashley," Joanna said slightly tensely. "How are things going with the updated plan?" "I'm already working on adapting the campaign to B2B rails," she answered, trying to keep a calm look. "Fine. I'm expecting a draft by the end of the week. Don't let me down." She turned and walked towards the doors without saying another word. Ashley clenched her fingers angrily on the strap of her bag. "Don't let me down," she mimicked to herself. "It's like I'm her subordinate trainee." During the day, Ashley crossed paths with Laura more than once on work issues. During lunch break, they sat down together again. This time, the cafeteria was freer. "Well, how was yesterday?" Laura asked, grinning. "I hope you had a great time." "Oh, yes," Ashley nodded and pretended to brush an imaginary speck of dust from her shoulder. "Everything went great. Most importantly, remember to be careful." "Yes, I already understood. But you know, sometimes I want to shock this Bartlett. Show her our photos, her face would probably be priceless." "Oh, don't flirt," Laura caught herself. "I understand your anger, but this may come back to haunt you not only with a reprimand, but also with dismissal under the article for discredit." "They can't fire me just like that," Ashley said confidently. "I am a valuable personnel, and besides, Brad is a lawyer for the company himself. He'll cover for me if anything happens." Laura looked at her doubtfully, but remained silent. In the evening, Ashley lingered in the office, sorting through reports. The phone was flashing notifications, but she didn't pay attention. It was already about 8 in the evening when she finally got ready. As I was leaving the building, I saw Tom and his colleague coming out of a nearby elevator. They were apparently finishing up some server setup. "Hey," Tom said when he saw her. "Why are you so late?" "Work," Ashley answered briefly. "Are you late too?" "Yes, there were problems with the log files." He nodded. "We wanted to make it before the end of the day." They stopped for a moment, looking at each other. It seemed like they were about to start talking about something personal, but no. Silence. "Okay, I'll go then," she said first and turned around and went to the car. On the way home, Ashley felt vaguely irritated. "Why should I ask how he is doing? He doesn't ask me questions himself," she thought. At the same time, a message came from Brad. "I'll be busy tomorrow on a business trip, but can we go somewhere on Friday evening?" She smiled. "Of course, with pleasure," she typed in response. And somewhere deep inside there was bitterness. "Well, I'm ready to communicate with Brad, but I can't even have a heart-to-heart talk with my husband." Thursday came. The day started out much like the previous ones, but Ashley felt that the atmosphere in the office had become more tense. Someone was whispering, strange remarks popped up in the chat that she did not understand. A couple of times she caught glances at herself as if her colleagues suspected something. But she decided not to attach any importance to it. At lunchtime, Laura approached her with a serious face. "Listen, I have a strange feeling that there are some rumors going around. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but be careful." "What other rumors?" Ashley frowned. "I don't know for sure, but people are whispering. This may not have anything to do with you, but I'm playing it safe." "Okay, thanks for your concern," Ashley replied, although she tensed internally. An hour before the end of the working day, Ashley received a corporate letter from Joanna. "Ashley, please come to my office to discuss your project." Her heart skipped a beat. "Did you really find out something?" flashed through her head, but she immediately pulled herself together. "No, most likely it's something for work." Entering the office, she saw Bartlett's cold face and the same gaze steely, tenacious. "Sit down," Joanna briefly pointed to a chair. "What did you want to talk about?" Ashley tried to look confident. "One of our clients called me today. He said that he had received some clear information about our new strategy. Allegedly, we will switch to B2B, sharply reducing retail support. Did you spread such information?" "Of course not," Ashley said indignantly. "Who would I say this, officially? I myself have not yet approved the final project. I see. Joanna looked at her emotionlessly. I'll clarify the details. But be prepared for the fact that if this is a leak from your team, you will have to answer. Okay, but I didn't leak anything. Ashley shrugged. You know, I am loyal to the company. I hope so, Joanna said. And also, Ashley. Yes, sorry if I'm harsh sometimes. But the work requires toughness. Her voice became a little softer. I appreciate your ideas. I just don't like it when people think they can beat the system. Ashley had a hard time hiding a sarcastic smile. He doesn't like being passed over. Well, but your husband has been around for a long time. But she answered out loud. Understand. I'll try to be more transparent. Great, Joanna nodded. You can go. When the door closed behind Ashley, Joanna plunged back into her papers. But somewhere inside her, there was a vague feeling of anxiety. Too many coincidences. A thought began, but she pushed it away. We need to work. Ashley spent that evening at home, locked in the bedroom, watching TV shows, answering a couple of letters from Brad. Tom was in his office, apparently talking on a video call with colleagues from San Francisco. They crossed paths only once at the refrigerator. Are you going to have dinner? He asked. No appetite, she said and went back. Silence enveloped the house. The crack between them grew deeper, although neither dared to take a step towards reconciliation. On Friday, Ashley came to the office in high spirits. An evening with Brad was ahead. But I immediately felt some nervousness around me. People whispered in groups and glanced briefly at her. What's happening? She was nervous. Laura, looking out from her office, called quietly. Hey, come see me for a minute. Ashley walked in and saw Laura looking worried. What's happened? Remember when I said there were rumors? Looks like someone found out about your, affair with Brad. They say they saw you together somewhere in the center. Who? Where? Ashley immediately frowned. This is nonsense. Don't know. A couple of employees said they saw Miss Weston with some man leaving the bar late at night. He supposedly kissed you on the cheek. Ashley pursed her lips. Damn, this is too dangerous. But we have a big city. What a coincidence. She exclaimed out loud. It could be any couple. Yes, I agree, but people love gossip. And the fact that you are angry with Joanna and her husband is called the object of suspicion. This is all too much. This can't be true, Ashley snapped. They have no evidence. And who would raise a scandal out of nowhere? You understand, in our office, everything goes quickly. Ashley felt a wave of panic rise up inside her, but she forced herself to calm down. Fine, I'll just deny it. All. No one will catch my hand. Try to be careful, Laura repeated. I'm worried about you. Ashley nodded and walked out, trying to be more confident. But the thought was itching in my head. I'll have to warn Brad. We must be even more careful. On her way to her seat, she ran into Joanna, who stopped and looked carefully into Ashley's eyes. Wait a minute. Are you okay? You look kind of tense. Yes, everything is fine, Ashley lied, trying not to show confusion. Joanna frowned, but moved on. And alarm bells started ringing in Ashley's head. God, if only it didn't get to her. Friday mornings at Lexontech were usually seen as a time to unwind before the weekend, but not this time. Ashley found herself waking up with an anxious lump in her chest as the rumors about her and Brad seemed to have taken root. It seemed that everyone around was discussing it in a whisper. This feeling had been haunting her for the second day already. She walked into the office with the air of a confident woman, but inside her hands were shaking a little. Having passed through the turnstile, I noticed that the girl at the reception looked at her somehow warily. Paranoia, Ashley thought. Anything can happen. At her workplace, she quickly turned on her laptop and opened her mail. A couple of letters from the advertising department, several KPI reports. Everything is routine. However, one message from Laura with the subject line, "Beware of possible questions," caught my attention. Hello. I found out that Joanna was asking where you were the night before last because someone saw you leaving a bar downtown with a man in a suit. Be careful. Ashley felt a chill inside. She leaned back in her chair, trying to pull herself together. Are they really already trying to get to the bottom of it officially? There is no evidence, at most rumors. Oh God, she breathed. We need to tell Brad to quiet down for a while. I was about to answer Laura when the phone on the table vibrated. The number was unfamiliar. She frowned and picked up the phone. Hello? Hello, Miss Weston. This is Jeremy from Lexon Tech Security. We need to ask you a few questions regarding work passes and after-hours travel. Excuse me. What? There was an unpleasant feeling in my chest. No problem. Standard check. Can you come see us today at 13 o'clock? Okay. She answered automatically, although everything inside was shrinking. After hanging up, Ashley felt sweat form on her forehead. Security, standard check, perhaps it really is just a coincidence. Or, until lunch, she rushed between her tasks and anxious thoughts. They met Laura near the cooler. Have you heard about the test? Ashley asked nervously. No, this is too much. Laura shook her head. Maybe it's really a coincidence, but it's suspicious that you're the one being called. Remember, if they suddenly ask about your personal life, say that everything is fiction. Of course, Ashley nodded. But why such pressure? This can't just be Joanna's initiative. Who knows? Sometimes management acts on the sly to find out who is leaking confidential data, and the rumors about your affair. Laura sighed heavily. You know how it happens. If someone is looking for a reason to fire an employee, he can seize on any story. The friend's words only increased the panic. Do they really want to throw me out? Ashley was pounding in her head. At 12:50, she went to the 10th floor, where the security department was located. Walking past the glass partitions, I saw the cold glances of people in uniform, server racks, and cameras. She always hated these corridors, too many controls and sensors. Miss Weston, a man of about 40 with a Jeremy Frost badge, came out. Please go to the meeting room. A woman in a business suit was already sitting inside, with a laptop on the table in front of her. Hello, I'm Cynthia, in-house legal counsel. Have a seat. Her voice sounded evenly, almost without emotion. The conversation lasted about 20 minutes. First, the questions asked about absences. Where were you on Wednesday evening? What time did you leave? Did you check in at the turnstile? Do you have any external meetings that you need to know about? Ashley tried to answer calmly. I had an unscheduled lunch with a friend after work. For personal matters, I returned home around 11. It's clear. Did you visit the office after hours? No. Why? The questions came one after another, but there was no direct hint of an affair with Brad. Then Cynthia clarified. Do you know Mr. Brad Bartlett? Of course. Ashley's heart skipped a beat. He is a lawyer for our company. I sometimes crossed paths with him at corporate events. Do you have personal correspondence? No, only work when it was necessary to clarify the details of contracts. Sure. While writing something down, Cynthia nodded. They're not sure yet, Ashley reassured herself. They have no direct evidence. Finally, they were released. Jeremy shrugged. Don't worry, it's a formality. We can contact you again if necessary. Ashley walked out onto the floor, almost choking with relief. They can't show anything yet, she thought. But you have to be careful. It looks like Joanna is using internal services to look for an opportunity to apply pressure. She wrote a short message to Brad. I had a conversation with the security guards. Your wife seems to smell something. You need to be careful. The answer came an hour later. I'll sort everything out, don't worry. Can we meet in the evening? A smile crossed Ashley's lips. Apparently, it's not all that scary. After work, they agreed to meet at another place, this time an Italian restaurant in the north of the city. Ashley justified herself at home by saying, We're having a small team dinner with the PR people today, and Brad told his wife that he had a sudden meeting with his partners. Hi, he smiled as she approached the table. Glad you could. How did it go? Standard interrogation, she shrugged, sitting down. But I'm worried. Joanna seemed to be on the hunt. Listen, Brad put his hand on her wrist. No need to panic. I know all the legal loopholes. Without direct evidence, you are safe. And if anything happens, I will intervene. Brad's confident tone calmed her slightly. They ordered pasta and wine and exchanged a few jokes. But somewhere inside Ashley, a thought was seeping through. What if she finds a way? She can be merciless. The restaurant was filled with warm light, with soft music playing in the background. Brad seemed to be enjoying the moment, while a smiling Ashley tried to forget her worries from time to time. However, she kept glancing at her phone. What if Laura or someone from the office wrote that a new round of rumors had begun? An hour into dinner, Brad leaned closer. Maybe we can go to my place. There we will discuss everything in more detail, without prying eyes. Sure, maybe we should take a break for now. For what? After all, we are not children to play hide and seek. Besides, I want to see you not only at dinner. Ashley's heart was beating loudly. She understood that she was taking risks every time, but the desire for freedom and sensuality turned out to be stronger. Moreover, right now she needed to feel supported, even if it was the husband of the one who wanted to devour her. Okay, she answered quietly, only for a short time, and then I'll get home myself. As you say, Brad smiled. Ashley returned home around 11 p.m., trying to be as quiet as possible. Tom was apparently already asleep. The lights in the living room were off, only the lamp in the corridor was flickering. She sighed with relief and went up to the second floor. However, walking past the office door, I noticed a faint strip of light. Are you awake? She took a step and opened the door. Tom was sitting at the computer. Shadows from the monitor lay on his face. He turned around. Ashley came back late. Yes, sorry for waking you up. The work meetings dragged on. I see, he narrowed his eyes. Is this at the Marcello restaurant? She shuddered. Why is he asking that way? What? Why? I just saw the bill on our joint card, Tom explained as if by chance. I checked the statement. I wanted to understand what the expense was. You don't usually go to Marcello's. Ashley's gut broke. She had no idea that the card she sometimes used to pay was a shared one. Crap. Well, the team just chose him, she answered quickly, trying to speak evenly. You know, on Friday people want something tasty. I understand. Tom raised his eyebrows slightly, but did not pursue the topic. Okay, rest. I need to finish a couple of reports. She quickly disappeared into the corridor. We need to be more careful with expenses, flashed through my head. It wasn't enough for him to suspect. In the bedroom, she could not sleep for a long time, replaying in her head how everything could get out of control. Perhaps Tom is not as simple as he seems. And Joanna. Okay, she calmed herself. Brad said he would help. Everything will be fine. The new work week began with strange looks and gossip. On Monday morning, walking into the office, Ashley heard two employees at the coffee machine suddenly fall silent when she appeared. One pretended to stir sugar, and the other stared at the phone. Well, she thought, I felt my pulse quicken. Nothing, just let them try to say it to your face. She walked to her seat, threw her bag on the table, and immediately noticed an email in Outlook with the subject. Extraordinary meeting of the marketing department. 10 o'clock. A must for everyone. What kind of rally is this? Ashley frowned. Usually the mailing came from Joanna, but this time the sender was the HR department. At 10 a.m., the entire marketing department gathered in a large meeting room. About 20 people, including Laura, several brand managers, and analysts. Ashley took a seat near the entrance, looking around. Joanna stood at the table, with two people from HR next to her. When everyone was seated, one of the HR employees stood up and said with a businesslike look, Good morning. My name is Anastasia Green, and I am a senior HR specialist. We have been tasked with conducting an internal briefing regarding updated corporate ethics and privacy policies. There was bewilderment in the hall. Someone looked at each other. Someone flipped through the phone. Ashley felt the tension. They're up to something. Recently, Anastasia continued, cases of unauthorized disclosure of confidential information and violations of ethical principles when communicating in corporate channels have become more frequent. The company considers this a serious offense. She paused and looked around at the staff. We remind you, any personal conflicts, and especially inappropriate statements addressed to colleagues, are unacceptable, and the spread of rumors or information that discredits the company's reputation can lead to disciplinary action, including dismissal. These words chilled many people. Ashley noticed someone swallow nervously. Laura, standing nearby, tried to keep an impenetrable face, and Joanna looked off into the distance, crossing her arms. If you have questions, contact HR. The rally is over, Anastasia concluded. Coming out of the meeting room, the employees began whispering, discussing what was causing such a harsh tone. Some believed that the matter was a data leak on a new project, others assumed a scandal in top management. Ashley was painfully aware that this could be a veiled warning for her too. What nonsense, she said quietly to Laura. They are planning everything to make people afraid. Yes, but clearly we are talking about some kind of personal conflict. Laura nodded towards Joanna. Look how she looks. It's like he's having a hard time holding back his anger. Do you think this is a signal to me? Don't know, but be careful. Returning to her workplace, Ashley opened her email. Empty, no requests from HR. Okay, maybe they're just bullying everyone, she thought. Through the glass partition, she saw Joanna. She was talking to someone on the phone, her face tense. A minute later, the woman hung up and left the office without noticing Ashley. She clearly has a storm inside, flashed through her head. I wonder how close she is to the truth about me and Brad. That afternoon, Ashley received a message from Brad. Everything is calm, don't worry. Internal checks are a formal routine. Today I am busy until the evening. Maybe we can call you later. She breathed a sigh of relief. At least he doesn't panic, she thought. There were still a few hours left before the end of the working day. Ashley tried to focus on her tasks. She prepared a draft presentation for the B2B segment and supplemented the table with numbers from analytics. But the thought was constantly spinning in her head that her every step was at gunpoint. Around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, she caught the gaze of one of the marketing specialists, Tim. They rarely communicated before, but now he looked as if he wanted to say something. What's the matter? Ashley asked quietly, walking past his table. Tim looked away. No, nothing. Just, be careful, okay? I saw HR looking for something in the mail database, and your name flashed there. It sounded ominous. Ashley clenched her fists. They can check work emails, that's normal. But what if they intercept my correspondence with Laura? She knows about my novel. In the evening, she returned home in a state of deep anxiety. Tom was in the living room, watching some tech blog on TV, but didn't really seem to be paying much attention to what was happening on the screen. Hi, Ashley said quietly, kicking off her shoes. Hello, he answered automatically. How is the day? It's okay. She sat down on the sofa next to her, but left some distance between them. Do you have anything new? Normal turnover, systems, logs, audit. Silence. The TV was flickering. Ashley turned her gaze to her husband, suddenly realizing that she almost couldn't remember when they had a normal conversation. A strange feeling of guilt flashed inside me for living a double life. Do you think, she began, maybe we should go somewhere for the weekend? Distract yourself. Tom turned off the sound. Why suddenly such a desire? Well, we haven't gone out for a long time. Maybe a walk outside the city. I should check the schedule, he shrugged, not showing much enthusiasm. At this point, the conversation died down. Ashley stood up and went into the bedroom, feeling even more empty. He's not interested at all, she thought bitterly. Then I won't beat myself up about having Brad. At night, she had nightmares, as if the whole company was sitting in a conference room and her personal photographs with Brad were displayed on the screen. Laughter, whispers, condemnation, glances. She woke up in a cold sweat around 3 in the morning, her heart beating like crazy. Tom lay nearby, sleeping on his side. No, that's impossible, she thought. We must continue to be careful so that this hell never happens. Wednesday, start of the working day. It seems that nothing foreshadowed a catastrophe, but it is on such ordinary days that events happen that change everything. Ashley sat in her seat, looking through a new newsletter, a series of letters marked urgent regarding a presentation to potential clients. Laura was also in the mailing chain, several colleagues from related departments. Joanna, as the leader, stood in copy, standard practice. In one of the letters, Laura asked clarifying questions. What is the best way to design the slides? Do I need to coordinate the text with lawyers? It was around noon and Ashley was feeling hungry and irritable. The morning meeting again passed under the cold gaze of Joanna, who made the comment for the 100th time that the data is not optimized for B2B. Slamming the door, Ashley went to her room, cursing her boss. I received a message from Laura via Teams. Hold on, friend. I saw how she corrected you in front of everyone. Maybe we can have lunch and talk. I have a couple of ideas on how to make the presentation better. Damn, Ashley muttered, sighing. This bitch is killing me. In response, she quickly scribbled venom. Laura, she's annoying. You should have seen her face. She looks like she's empty space. Ha ha, no matter how it is. A couple of nights with me, and her husband is already disgusted to return home. Who's the queen now? Fingers tapped the keys furiously. Ashley saw that the subject line was the same as before. Client pitch deck urgent. Usual work thread. She just wanted to write this to Laura as usual in her hearts, to throw out her resentment and anger. Maybe also mention the details of meetings with Brad. Show off. Show that Joanna is losing control. After typing, she clicked the mouse. But absorbed in emotions, she did not pay attention to the drop-down list. Instead of reply, she clicked reply all. The message was sent throughout the mailing chain. And in it Joanna, several managers, HR, and even the CEO, who was always included in the urgent chain. Ashley didn't notice at first. She closed the letter window and exhaled, getting ready to go to lunch. A minute later, she received notifications in the team's chat. Is this a joke? Be careful with the newsletter. Several colleagues began to write to her in personal messages, and someone put the shock emoji under the message. What? She returned to the screen in confusion. I opened the sent letter. The pupils dilated. My heart sank to my feet. Damn it, she breathed. The message looked like this. Addressees 24. Joanna, Department, CEO, HR. A hurricane exploded in my head. Ashley rushed to the recall letter button, but it was too late. The corporate system had already sent out copies. Some people managed to read it. Some forwarded it to others who were not on the list. The auditory echo spread throughout the office rapidly. No, no, she muttered, feeling the lump in her throat growing. Her fingers trembled. She frantically tried to delete the letter, but she understood that the screenshots had probably already been distributed. Voices were heard in the corridor. People looked in, some let out a half-stifled laugh, some a sigh of amazement. The mail server hung for some time, and the IT department, at the direction of HR, began an emergency cleaning. But it was too late. Shocked reactions poured in on the messenger. What does it mean? Is she serious? Oh my God, she slept with Joanna's husband. This is real career suicide. Ashley sat there, pale, her palms cold. It seemed to her that everything around her was going in circles. My heart was pounding as if it was ready to burst out of my chest. And then a message arrived in Teams from Tom, short, I would like to talk at home, T. Her knees buckled. Thoughts were racing in my head. Tom found out. I found out in the most humiliating way. Next came a notification from HR. We ask you to go to the HR department immediately. At that moment, the door to her office swung open. 2 security officers appeared with serious faces. Miss Weston, please come with us. She swallowed. She got up and followed them. The gaze of her colleagues followed her as if she were condemned. Halfway there, she saw Joanna standing in the hallway, clutching a folder in her hands. The boss's face was tense, her gaze burned with rage, but at the same time it seemed to be frozen. The two women locked eyes for a second, but Ashley couldn't say a word. Joanna's eyes showed shock and then cold hatred. HR managers were waiting for her in the HR office. The atmosphere was reminiscent of an interrogation. "Miss Weston, please explain the contents of your letter." I made a mistake with the addressee," she said dully. "But you write there in plain text that you entered into an intimate relationship with Mr. Brad Bartlett. Do you confirm?" I didn't want to." My throat was constricted. Words didn't come out. It was a personal correspondence. I didn't intend to send it to everyone. "We understand. But you call your supervisor. Use insults and at the same time reveal details of your personal relationship with her husband. This is a gross violation of corporate ethics." Ashley looked at the floor. My hands were shaking. She understood. This is a disaster, and there is no turning back. "We are forced to launch an internal investigation," said one of the HR managers. "During the investigation, your access to corporate resources will be suspended. We ask you to hand over your pass and temporarily leave the office." "What?" Ashley looked at them in despair. "Are you firing me?" "For now, suspension for the period of investigation. You will receive an official notification." Tears came to my eyes. She stood up, her hands shaking, took off her badge and put it on the table. Everything collapsed with one button, pounded in my brain. She was taken out of the office like a criminal. Some colleagues turned away sympathetically, others looked with condemnation. Laura caught my eye standing by the elevator, pale, eyes wide open. They made eye contact. Laura tried to move her lips, but did not have time. The guards led Ashley further. After leaving the building, Ashley got into the car, but could not start the engine. I wanted to scream, cry, and hit the steering wheel. How could I be so stupid? She understood that the entire office, including the CEO, had just found out about her affair with Joanna's husband. And Tom read everything too. The phone was flooded with messages from Laura, from friends. Brad called, but she couldn't speak. All she could do was put her head on the steering wheel and sob. I did it myself. When Ashley came to her senses a little, she nevertheless drove out of the parking lot, trying not to make eye contact with the security guards and employees. Her heart was pounding as if she had committed a crime. Panic thoughts ran through my head. What now? Tom knows. Joanna knows. HR found out. My career. Everything is downhill. She automatically directed the car home, although she wasn't sure that was a good idea. On the way, the phone vibrated again. Brad. She stopped at the curb and, taking a deep breath, pressed reply. "It works." An alarmed voice rang out. "What's going on?" "I received hundreds of calls. Your stupid email was seen by half the office. Sorry. My voice trembled. I clicked reply all by accident. Oh my God, there's a pause on the other end. "Do you even understand what it looks like?" "Yes. Do you think I'm proud?" "I was suspended, possibly fired. Now the whole company knows that we were asleep. Your wife." Stop. Brad spoke quickly, a little nervously. "I'll try to hush this up. I'll try to intervene legally. I will say that this is all slander or a joke." "Joke?" Ashley asked bitterly. "They saw the text. Everything is there in black and white. Maybe we can say that this is a hack, that someone hacked your account and wanted to set us up." "Are you serious?" Ashley almost screamed. "Nobody will believe it. It's written too clearly." There is silence on the other end of the line. Finally, Brad said, "Then I will have to admit that we had a friendly connection. But intimacy is supposedly your fantasies. Understand, I cannot confirm our affair under oath. Otherwise, Joanna will destroy me." "What?" Ashley gasped. "So you want to blame everything on me? I'm trying to save both myself and you, but I don't know how." "Oh." She closed her eyes, feeling the despair creeping in. We'll talk later. I need to explain things to Tom. She hung up without waiting for an answer. Tears blurred her eyes, but she pressed on the gas, trying to get home as quickly as possible. Entering the house, she saw Tom in the living room. He was sitting on the sofa, holding a phone in his hands, on the screen of which, it seemed, was that same scandalous text. He stood up slowly when he saw Ashley. "Well," he said quietly, putting the phone in his pocket. "A very impressive letter." "Tom, listen," she whispered, tears flowing. I I don't know how it happened. I Yes, I just know how." He came closer, looking into her face. "Sorry. I understand that this is terrible." "Terrible," he repeated, and a bitter laugh erupted in his voice. "It's terrible when you find out about your wife, with whom you lived for almost 10 years, as the mistress of another man and publicly, along with dozens of colleagues." She lowered her head. I wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. "Do you know what's the strangest thing?" Tom spoke without shouting, but there was a steely note in his voice. "It's not so much the fact of betrayal that kills me. It gets me, how you describe it, with anger, with a desire to humiliate. Humiliate Joanna, your boss, and at the same time expose me to public disgrace. I didn't want to set you up. It got out of control. I was angry. I see that it's out of control." Silence hung between them. Tears streamed down Ashley's face, and she clenched her hands, trying not to cry out loud. "Tom," she tried, "maybe we can still find a way to save the marriage." He looked at her as if he didn't recognize her. "Save? Do you think after this you can just save?" He turned to the window. I I have no words, and there is no desire to make a scene. Believe me, there will be no screams. But life will no longer be the same as before. "Tom, wait." She took a step forward, but he raised his palm, stopping her. "I need time and space. It's better if you leave for now." "Where?" "Anywhere. You can visit a friend, your family, rent a hotel. It doesn't matter. I can't see you now." He said this calmly but decisively. Ashley felt the ground disappear from under her feet. "Is he kicking me out of my own home?" "Okay," she squeezed out through tears. "I'll pack my things." Tom nodded and left the living room. A minute later, the front door slammed, and he left, leaving her completely confused. While packing her bag, Ashley sobbed out loud. "How did I get to this point?" The thought was spinning. Did I really ruin my whole life for the sake of dubious revenge on Joanna? At some point, she wanted to call Laura, but she already wrote, "HR walks around the office, asking about you. Joanna is furious. Brad has disappeared somewhere. They say he is also in shock. Be careful." She threw the phone into her bag and left the house, feeling that only a fragment remained of her usual life. Staying at an inexpensive hotel on the outskirts of the city, Ashley spent a painful night there. Friends and acquaintances were constantly calling. The news spread throughout the industry instantly. "Are you okay? Is this true? What happens now?" She ignored most calls, but I still received one call from Laura. "It works. I don't know what to say. This is tough. Everyone is discussing it. HR has launched an official investigation. They are talking about your dismissal." "What about Brad?" "He went on a business trip. He probably ran away. Joanna walks like a shadow, but yesterday she was seen in the CO's office. I think she requires tough measures." "I see," Ashley said sadly. "Okay, thanks for telling me." Having disconnected, she realized that, in fact, she no longer had a job. Life is falling apart. That afternoon, she plucked up her courage and drove to the house to try to talk to Tom. But his car was not in the yard. I called and didn't pick up, probably at work or avoiding me. With a heavy heart, she returned to the hotel. 2 days passed like this. She vacillated between panic and despair. I tried to call Brad, but he often didn't answer. When he answered, he only said, "I can't do anything. Joanna filed for divorce, and I can't admit to having an affair. It would destroy my career. I'm sorry." Sorry. Ashley almost squealed into the phone, but resisted. Okay, he's saving his own skin. Okay, nothing can be changed. On Friday morning, she finally received an official notification in her personal email. Miss Weston, an internal investigation has discovered. And then in dry language, at the end, you have been terminated for gross violation of corporate ethics and damage to the business reputation of Lexontech. As if she had been stabbed in the heart, Ashley closed her eyes and grabbed her temples, so fast, without the opportunity to object. She wandered to the hotel window, looking at the gray sky. Well, she thought bitterly, the mission is accomplished. I wanted to humiliate my boss, but I was humiliated myself. In the evening, I received a message on my mobile phone. I need your answer. Divorce. Volume. My heart froze. So he's filing for divorce too. She typed out the answer with trembling fingers. Can we talk? Please. No answer. She sat on the edge of the bed for several hours, drenched in tears. My thoughts were racing. How to get Tom back? Can I? I destroyed everything myself. Late in the evening, the phone still buzzed. Message from Tom. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock, we can meet briefly at the house. Be on time. She rushed to the mirror, realizing that she looked terrible, but at least a chance to explain. On Saturday morning, she arrived at the house exactly at 10. Tom walked out onto the porch, wearing a casual jacket, his hands in his pockets. He looked tired, but calm. Let's sit down, he said, pointing to a bench near the entrance. Fine. We sat next to each other, about 2 meters from each other. I don't want to waste a lot of words, Tom began, without looking at her. I'll tell you the main thing. I'm filing for divorce. The lawyer is already preparing the papers. Perhaps you will dispute it, but there are irrefutable facts there. Ashley felt a burning pain in her chest. Tom, I understand that everything is my fault. But is it really impossible, somehow, to restore the relationship? He looked into her eyes. I know that you want everything to be as before, but I have no strength and no desire to live with the person who betrayed me. Even if there was no affair, your words say more about you than your actions. It's dirt, Ashley. She covered her face with her hands. Tears flowed. I'm sorry. I was furious. Joanna infuriated me. I felt that you didn't notice me. Perhaps, Tom responded coldly, but this is not an excuse. He stood up and paused for a moment. Regarding the house and bills, I've already arranged everything. Lawyers will do everything according to the law. You will receive a part, but without my consent to anything more. So financially, I won't let you drown, but everything else is over. She wanted to object, to say that they built this house together, but realized that she herself had put everything under the switch. And even now, Tom looks like a man who doesn't care. He will not persuade, he will not cry. It's scary. Okay, she whispered. I will accept whatever you decide. Will you ever forgive me? I don't know, Tom answered, but definitely not now. He turned around and walked back to the door, saying as he went, The lawyer will call you. Good luck. The door closed, and in the silence of the autumn morning, Ashley realized that it was really over. After this meeting, she wandered around the city. I tried to find some kind of support point. I called several recruiters. We don't have any positions, unfortunately. As soon as they heard the name, they politely hung up the call. Apparently, Lexontech has already informed everyone that she is persona non grata. Walking into one of the marketing agencies, I was turned away. I found out that they have no current vacancies. In fact, I understood that my reputation was ruined. News of her story spread quickly. The woman who slept with her boss' husband and insulted the boss. Who will hire such an employee? So over the course of a week, she went through several interviews and ran into veiled refusals everywhere. The world was collapsing even more. It seemed like there was a complete collapse. She sometimes spent the night with Laura, but she was already beginning to stay away, fearing that she too would be drawn into the scandal. Ashley's parents were in another state and couldn't help much. Scrolling through her news feed, Ashley came across a bunch of memes and humorous posts. Replyalgate, the boss's mistress, failure of the century. Be careful with the reply all button lessons from Lexicon Tech. Her name appeared more and more often in the comments. Reading the ridicule, she trembled with hatred and shame. I caused this myself. A month after the scandal, Ashley's life resembled walking on burning coals. The divorce from Tom proceeded at an accelerated pace. She signed the papers, barely reading it. The funds in the account were melting. There were no job offers. Lexontech has already issued an internal memorandum on ethics policy with its example as the most egregious violation in recent years. So the road to large companies was closed to her. Tom practically disappeared from her life, communicating only through a lawyer. Through mutual friends, Ashley found out that he was going to leave Lexicontech too and move to a startup. Calm, no noise. He doesn't care, she thought bitterly. He simply crossed me out of life. In the evening, when Ashley once again returned to her rented room, she found a notice in the mail that the divorce had been officially filed. Now she is legally free, or abandoned, depends on the point of view. How long she sat staring at these letters is unclear. Divorce, finally and irrevocably. Memories appeared before my eyes. The wedding day, how they bought this house, evening trips. Everything melted away, dissolved in darkness. The next day, Ashley tried to distract herself by going for a walk in the park. I was sitting on a bench, scrolling through my phone. Suddenly, a message from Tom, short. I hope you find a way to move on soon. Goodbye. She reread these words several times. There was no sarcasm or anger, just a cold, alien goodbye. There was a burning sensation in my chest, but nothing could be returned. A year is a period sufficient for everything and nothing to change at the same time. On the one hand, after the scandal of the century at Lexicontech, the company has already rebuilt some of its internal processes, updated its management team, and adopted several new policies on corporate ethics. On the other hand, office gossip, never-ending memes, and the mysterious aura around reply all continue to circulate among employees in the form of an instructive legend. For Ashley herself, the past year has turned into a protracted period of trials. And if in the first weeks after her dismissal, it seemed to her that she would not be able to get out of the impasse, then a persistent instinct of survival arose. However, her path was not easy. Every day she had to rethink her own life. She had not seen Tom for many months. Only once, when I accidentally ran into him in a law office, where it was necessary to draw up the final papers on the division of property, but he behaved aloof and politely. I also saw Joanna only briefly. In the news blocks of business portals, they mentioned that she was effectively managing the department after a series of personnel changes. Evil tongues said that her marriage to Brad was officially over, and she herself became even tougher in her work. Brad, he disappeared from Ashley's field of vision and cut off contact. It soon became known. He quit Lexontech and moved to another company, trying to avoid Joanna's influence. For Ashley herself, it remained a painful memory, a symbol of how easily a wrong decision can ruin everything. And now, a year later, each of them is on their own trajectory. Everyone has their own new life. But the common thread of the past still squeezed their stories as if giving the final touches. Early morning. The March sun breaks through the worn curtains, filling the small room with dim golden light. Ashley lies in bed, listening to the noise of passing cars outside the window. The small one-room apartment is located in the Elmwood neighborhood, which is far from the most prestigious neighborhood in Chicago, but there are cheap rentals here. She has been living here for several months. In truth, this is not the place she ever dreamed of. But it doesn't seem like a living hell. Although the apartment is tiny, there is a park within walking distance and a public library nearby, where she periodically looks for options for work. Today is a special day. Ashley has an interview with a digital agency that specializes in SMM and advertising on social networks. This is hardly a top place, but still a chance to start a career from scratch. She's been knocking on closed doors for too long. Too often I heard the polite, "We'll call you back," and more silence. Rising from the bed, she looks at herself in the mirror. My hair has grown longer, and the shade has changed slightly. Now it's darker than before. The wrinkles around the eyes have become more noticeable. A year of turmoil and stress has added to her age, although according to documents she is only 34. Her face looks haggard, but at the same time there is some new light, as if hardened from the collapse she experienced. Calm down, most importantly, don't be afraid of another failure, Ashley says to herself, starting to drink a cup of instant coffee. It seems tasteless, but better than nothing. For a long time she felt that she had no future. But now I firmly decided, it's time to end the self-criticism. We need to move on, even if slowly. Digital agency Focus Social is located in the Office Center Green Plaza. Once upon a time, Ashley would never have gone for such a small option after Lexontech. These premises seem almost makeshift. But now her demands have dropped, and her arrogance has disappeared. The hiring manager, a girl named Stacy, greets her with a polite smile. "Miss Weston, come on in." A short reception area, a couple of chairs, a sign. Ashley looks around the space, noticing posters with motivational slogans like "Social media is your future." "Tell me briefly about your experience," asks Stacy, sitting down at the table. And Ashley begins to talk for the 100th time about her experience in marketing, about the projects she led, about her successes, without forgetting to ignore the fact that she was fired due to a loud scandal. However, she knows, many HR people still do background checks. But Focus Social is not such a large agency. Maybe they don't care. "You mentioned that you have experience in brand strategy," Stacy nods. "We really need this, especially if you know how to create content plans for large clients." "Of course," Ashley replies reservedly, "I had many projects. First of all kinds of B2C campaigns." "Fine. We'll consider your candidacy," Stacy says, straightening up. "I think we'll give an answer within a week." As Ashley leaves, she can't tell whether she was politely indifferent or truly interested. I was too used to cold rejections to believe in miracles. But I learned a lesson. No unnecessary mentions of Lexontech, Joanna, or reply all. That same day, returning to her rented apartment, she comes across a new article on social networks about Lexontech culture reboot. It turns out that the company has introduced new corporate culture training modules. The article mentions something like an incident last year where an ethics violation resulted in reputational damage. No names, but Ashley understands this is about her. The first impulse is to close your eyes and delete the page. But then something inside prompts her to open the comments. People write, "That's right, if someone is having affairs, it's time to put them in their place. Corporate ethics is not an empty phrase. You can't restrain personal passions." Receive. And other sarcasm. "Stupid internet," she says quietly, closing her laptop. But a feeling of shame creeps in. I remember all those nightmares. She sits in silence for a long time, then decides to call her parents to find out how they are doing. Previously, my mother often asked when she would return to her husband or make peace. Now, even the parents have realized that it is impossible to reconcile. Tom is officially divorced, and according to rumors, everything is already going well for him. But the bitterness remained inside my mother. Today, Ashley doesn't want to talk about the pain. She just wants to hear the warm voice of her family, to feel connected to a world in which she is not judged. "Hello, Mom. How are you there?" "Ashley. Okay. Dad is in the garden. I'm baking in the kitchen." "How are you, daughter?" "It's okay," she lied, her voice trembling slightly. "Well, I went for an interview. I hope they take it." They chat for a couple of minutes about trifles. Mom carefully asks, "Tom didn't show up?" "No, Mom. It's all over between us." "Yes, I understand." There is silence in which one can feel concern, but there are no words that can turn back time. A week after her visit to Focus Social, Ashley receives an email. "Dear Miss Weston, we are pleased to announce." She glances. She is being hired as a digital strategy consultant for a 3-month trial period. The salary is small, but the letter emphasizes that there are prospects for growth. Lord, really? Ashley sighs, clutching her phone to her chest. For the first time in a long time, she feels something resembling joy. If there is work, then there will be stability, at least some kind. But of course, my head is already rustling. What if her past appears somewhere in the system? Will they think they hired a scandalous employee, trying not to force it? He remembers Brad saying, "If there is no direct evidence in the form of a verdict, few people will delve deeply. And it's not interesting for a small agency if it doesn't cause trouble." This is what gives her a tiny but important support. She can start again. Maybe not in a top company, maybe without high-profile projects, but with the prospect of slowly regaining my reputation. This small success seems like a lifeline, and Ashley decides to celebrate. With nothing special, just buying a delicious takeout coffee and a piece of chocolate cake from the local bakery. Sitting on a bench with a paper cup, she realizes how she has changed over the years. She used to perceive this as commonplace, but now she sees it as a reward for strength and endurance. The cityscape opens from the panoramic window on the 22nd floor of the Sun Tower Business Center. Here, among other companies, is located Cyberfort, a small but rapidly growing startup engaged in innovative cybersecurity solutions. The head of the systems research department is Tom Weston. Yes, he left Lexicon Tech about a couple of months after the scandal. They say they wanted to keep him by offering him a promotion, but he himself made the decision. "Everything here is saturated with memories. We have to leave." He left quietly, without unnecessary statements, like everything in his character. And soon enough I found an option with Cyberfort, where I received freedom of action and the opportunity to use my skills. "Tom, good morning." The young developer enthusiast greets him, passing by. "Hello," Tom answers, slowly entering his office. Outwardly, Tom has changed little over the years. The same neat haircuts, discreet clothes, and casual style, a tired but attentive look. Except that, according to some employees, he became a little more smiling. Or perhaps he just has a calmer outlook on life. One day, at the end of the working day, Tom discusses with his partner, Mike, the specifics of a new contract. Their startup is going to implement a threat monitoring system for a large logistics holding, a large order that can take Cyberfort to a new level. "Are you sure we have enough resources?" Mike asks, leafing through the technical documentation. "Yes, we just need new servers and a couple of smart programmers," Tom answers. "How about you? Won't you burn out?" "The project is complex. The deadlines are tight." "I'm in shape," Tom shrugs. He really looks confident. He enjoys his work and can immerse himself in tasks without constantly thinking about personal drama. However, sometimes memories overtake him in the evening when he returns home. After the divorce, Tom did not stay in the same house. He sold it and received most of the funds, taking into account all the agreements and lawyer nuances. "I bought an apartment closer to the center in the new Riverwalk complex. Modest but modern, with a good view of the river. He doesn't live there alone. 6 months after all the events, he became close to an old acquaintance, Sharon, the widow of a former colleague. Some thought it was something like a therapeutic union between two bereaved people, but in reality it was deeper than that. They found common interests and mutual understanding. Sharon does not press questions and does not try to delve into his past, although she knows everything about him. And Tom appreciated her kindness and calmness. "Are you back?" she asks when he crosses the threshold in the evening. "Yes, there were meetings. I'm terribly tired." Tom takes off his shoes and notices that the room is in cozy twilight. "Would you like some tea? I chose a new collection with ginger." "Yes, please," he nods, taking off his jacket. A warm wave spreads inside him. Finally, there is a feeling that what awaits him at home is not conflicts and silence, but people who can be called close. Sharon smiles. "I'm here now." He walks into the living room, where there's one family photo on the wall, but now it's him and Sharon at a picnic, both smiling. There are also photographs in the albums of her former life with her late husband, but this does not evoke painful emotions. Tom understands that people can continue to live, preserving the memory of the past, but not drown in it. Sometimes, of course, questions about the future come up. She once mentioned that she wanted to get married again, but Tom carefully laughs it off, saying that he is too busy with projects. He learns to truly live in the moment. If Tom had been told a year ago that he would be able to calmly remember his ex-wife, he would not have believed it. The betrayal was too bitter and public, but he did not allow himself to become a victim of resentment. Instead, he chose the path of cold restraint. And now sometimes he thinks, well, everyone builds their own destiny. Yes, he heard from mutual friends that Ashley was looking for work and was not living in the best conditions. Some feel sorry for her, others gloat. His personal feelings, a mixture of regret and calm acceptance. The feeling of a final break. And yet, when remembering their first years of life together, sometimes something shrinks in the chest. After all, there was tenderness and happiness. But as soon as he remembers that scandalous letter, he again sees that there is no return. Once he even thought, what if I help her silently, anonymously? But then I pushed that thought away. Too much has happened, let her figure it out on her own. Now he is focused on current joys and problems. He is trying to build a career at Cyberfort and establish a new life with Sharon. I even learned to laugh at little things sometimes. As one colleague said, Tom, you're not as gloomy as you used to be, and there's some truth to that. Has its nature changed? Maybe the tension from the constant injury and cold at home just went away. For Joanna, the past year has been a time of serious adjustment. When everything was revealed and the office found out about her husband's betrayal, she experienced a huge shock and humiliation. But unlike Ashley, she was not fired. Rather, she herself turned to management with an ultimatum: if the company does not take control of the situation, she will leave. But it was too important for Lexicon Tech to retain a strong CMO, so they chose to put pressure on the guilty party. And Joanna emerged from this confrontation as a formal winner. However, his personal life began to crack. Brad, finding himself under fire, fled to another company. She filed for divorce. The documents were drawn up relatively quickly. The scandal fit into the formulation incompatibility of characters. They both had enough money not to divide their property before the bloodbath. He kept his own property, she kept the house. Now Joanna is no longer just a marketing director, but a vice president of marketing innovation, VP of marketing innovation. A series of transformations at Lexontech took it even higher. Colleagues adore her successes and are afraid of her approaches because she has become even tougher. When I say no, it means no, she might say at a meeting. If someone doesn't like something, the doors are open. In the office, they whisper that the new Joanna is even colder than before. Some claim that she burned out all the emotions inside herself. Others admire. She is an iron lady. She survived a personal drama and became stronger. But behind the walls of the office, there lives a real woman. One day, an old friend, Rebecca, a designer from another department, comes to visit her. They sit down in the kitchen of Joanna's spacious house, where Brad used to live. Now everything looks too deserted and neat. Well, are you happy with your new position? Rebecca asks, sipping her wine. More than, Joanna shakes her glass, looking at the ruby liquid. The work is going well, the reports are brilliant, the top management is happy. And herself? Rebecca looks at her intently. I have known you for several years. I know that the personal side matters to you. Joanna smiles, a bitter smile. Personal side? She shrugs. There's emptiness there. To be honest, I don't want to get along with anyone. There are rare meetings with friends, but I don't feel the need to start close relationships. Don't you feel, or are you afraid of a new betrayal? Joanna thinks for a moment, then says, I guess I'm afraid. I don't want to either. Now it's easier for me to manage my life myself. No one else will tell me what to do. Deep down, she remains offended by the whole world. Yes, she considers Brad a traitor, but especially Ashley. Bitch, snake, nothing. She repeated these words in her mind hundreds of times. Although he no longer wants to endure the conflict publicly, it's enough for her that Ashley crashed out of the company and from the professional field. Sometimes, alone, Joanna remembers those moments when she still loved Brad. Their travels together, laughing at stupid jokes. But immediately the memories give way to disgust as soon as she imagines what he did with another woman. It seems to her that he destroyed her then. Well, everyone will get what they deserve, she thinks, sipping wine. And, judging by rumors, Ashley has already received hers. At work, she has new projects that cannot be delayed, so she turns her pain into work energy, into anger at her subordinates, into rigidity that forces the team to move forward. The number of signed contracts grows, and along with it, her personal bank account. But is she happy? That's another question. After the scandal, Brad left Lexicon Tech, where he was corporate counsel. Unable to save his marriage, he went from scratch to the commercial law firm Caldwell and Manners. They accepted him willingly. He had an excellent track record, despite his personal dramas. But his reputation is still tarnished among corporate giants, because Joanna is an influential figure, and some rumors have reached her partners. I had to agree to worse conditions. He is now an ordinary legal advisor, without any particular prospects of rising to partner in the near future. Still, this is better than completely dropping out of the profession. In the evenings, he often sits at the bar, orders whiskey, reflects on life. At times, he turns over phrases in his head. Damn, how did I get involved in this novel? Maybe we should have not succumbed to the adventure. On the other hand, he recalls how the spark with Ashley gave him a feeling of freedom and drive. But the ending turned out to be disastrous. He had almost no contact with Ashley after those events, except for one short call when she quit and a couple of messages. He made a choice in favor of his own benefit and tried to make everything look like she came up with everything. Although in his heart he understands that he is also to blame. There's no point in beating yourself up, it won't bring your life back, Brad muses, emptying his glass. The waitress asks, would you like me to repeat that? Yes. So he periodically drowns both the night and the feeling of guilt in alcohol. Sometimes Brad meets with an old friend, Matt, also a lawyer. One day they are sitting in a restaurant. Matt asks, listen, you don't say anything about what's inside you, do you? We've all seen the article about how your ex-wife became vice president and you're now in a new office. Doesn't that bother you? Annoying? Brad smiles wryly. Yes. But what can you do? What about, that girl with whom you had this scandal? Have you tried to re-establish contact? With Ashley? Brad shakes his head. No. For what? There is nothing left for me to save, and she probably hates me. And you? Brad takes a deep breath. Rather, I feel like we both ruined our lives. She suffered more, of course she was kicked out altogether, her reputation was destroyed, and although I stayed afloat, I was at the bottom of the career food chain. Maybe we should apologize. In front of her, in front of Joanna. Brad looks out the window. I think neither one nor the other needs these apologies. It's too late. He pays the bill and goes into the dark night, not knowing where his life will take him. Perhaps everything will remain gray and colorless until he finds a way to let go of the past or atone for his guilt. After another 3 months at Focus Social, Ashley is starting to get the hang of it. The team is small, 8 people in an open space, plus a leader and a couple of managers. There are no tall glass partitions, no expensive coffee machines, and there is no feeling as if you are in an ultra-modern complex. But the atmosphere is more friendly. Everyone is on friendly terms, discussing social networks and creative approaches. Her probationary period was average, but she was not fired. On the contrary, Ashley, good job, the director, a handsome man of about 40 named Oliver, once said. True, he often asks to call her Ashley in English, which sounds somewhat strange in a Russian-speaking environment, but that's how it is in their agency. Many are guided by Western models. One of Ashley's first projects was SMM for a small food delivery startup. She drew up a content plan, designed advertising layouts, and introduced the idea of micro-videos on social networks. The client was satisfied and signed a long-term contract with the agency. "Well done," Oliver praised her. "Keep it up. A little more, and we can increase your salary." For Ashley, the promotion is not so much important as the feeling that her contribution is valued. Several colleagues now approach her for advice. What is the best way to design a landing page? How to promote a promotion? She helps by remembering old experiences. And for the first time in a year, she feels like she's not driven into a corner. Of course, she is afraid that one of the big clients will find out about the past. But so far, no one is digging deep into her biography. And she doesn't advertise it. One day, at the end of the working day, the lead copywriter, Sam, approaches Ashley. "Ashley, guess what? An IT company is contacting us. I want to order a campaign to promote new software. Something like improved antivirus, like Lexontech's competitors." When she hears the word Lexontech, her heart skips a beat. But she forces herself to look indifferent. "Yes, interesting. Will you participate in a brainstorming session? You have experience in it marketing." "Okay," she agrees, trying not to show her emotions. That evening, returning home, Ashley realizes that the topic of Lexontech remains difficult for her, and she sees how she wants to prove to herself, "I can develop without this past." And something unexpected also appears: sympathy from Oliver, her boss. He is a divorced man with a teenage daughter. At first, their relationship was limited to professional compliments. "Great presentation. You designed it well." But then he began inviting her to have coffee after work and discuss strategy in a more informal setting. One day, they are sitting in a small coffee shop next to the office, discussing advertising formats. Suddenly, Oliver says, "You know, Ashley, you are a very talented strategist. It's surprising why no one appreciated you before." Everything inside her goes cold for a moment. Well, there were different circumstances. She avoids it. "I don't pry into your personal life, but to be honest, it seems to me that your potential is even greater than the tasks that I am giving you now." She smiles, a little embarrassed. "Thank you, Oliver. I appreciate it." He himself is slightly worried, rubbing his palms. Maybe he wants to give a compliment or move on to personal topics. But Ashley is not yet ready for a serious rapprochement. The wounds are still too fresh, and the office romance. She quietly thinks, "I got burned once, I don't want to repeat." So far, everything remains at the level of friendly flirting and light hints, but a spark arises inside her. What if? Autumn is approaching. A major conference, Tech and Solutions 2026, is taking place in Chicago, bringing together representatives of IT companies, marketers, startupers, lawyers, and everyone who revolves around technology products. The irony of fate is that Cyberfort, where Tom works, and Focus Social, where Ashley ended up, and Joanna's company, Lexontech, are all participating in the conference with different presentations. Moreover, Caldwell and Manners, where Brad now lives, also oversees the legal aspects of one of the sessions. Oliver, impressed by Ashley's work, takes her with him as a representative of Focus Social to demonstrate cases on social networks and content promotion. At first, she resisted. "I don't like big events." But in the end, she agrees because this is a chance to build networking and find new clients. On the day of the conference, she puts on a formal suit and wears her hair up. She looks at herself in the mirror. The self-confident and vindictive girl she was a year ago is not there. Now she is a woman who has survived a difficult ordeal, but is ready to continue working. Tom arrives with the Cyberfort group, where he gives a short presentation on new solutions in the field of cybersecurity. Holding the tablet with one hand, he explains to his colleagues, "Our task is to show that we can control all data flows and prevent leaks." The session takes place in a large hall. Tom was worried because public speaking is not his strong point. But everything seems to be going well. The audience is interested. They ask him questions. At this moment, he catches a glimpse of a familiar figure at the end of the hall. My heart skips a beat. Ashley. She is standing by the aisle. Perhaps she accidentally came in to look for the right stand. Her eyes wander around the stage and suddenly meet Tom's gaze. They both freeze for a second. Tom continues to talk, but there is a storm inside. Is she really here? Ashley is also at a loss. She sees her ex-husband, with whom she has not crossed paths for a year. He looks calm, confident. Have you lost a little weight? So, in conclusion, Tom finishes, "Thank you for your attention." The audience applauds. Ashley realizes that standing here any longer is strange. She turns and quickly goes into the corridor. But going out into the hall, she doesn't have time to disappear into the crowd. Tom catches up with her, slightly out of breath. "Ashley," he calls, and she stops, turning to face him. "Hi." She squeezes out, feeling her heart pounding. They look at each other. A year ago, their conversation ended with Tom asking her to leave home. Since then, no direct conversations, only documents through lawyers. "How are you?" Tom asks quietly. Her mouth suddenly goes dry. "It's normal. I work in a marketing agency. And you?" "I heard that you have a cybersecurity startup." "Yes, Cyberfort." "It's not bad." He pauses, not knowing what else to say. His gaze skims over her face, noticing that she looks tired, but more collected than before. "Your report was interesting," Ashley says, feeling the absurdity, as if they were polite acquaintances. "Thank you." A pause that lasts forever. "I'm glad everything worked out for you." Her smile trembles. "Not everything is so smooth, but I try." "Understand." He turns his gaze away, not wanting to stir up memories. Is it worth talking about the past? Apologize? Feel guilty? Questions flash through my head. But Tom has long since let go of his aggression. He just feels a nagging sense of loss that cannot be returned. "Okay," he says finally. "Sorry, I have a further program of events. Good luck, Ashley." "And you, Tom," she whispers. He leaves. She remains standing in the corridor, trying to calm her racing pulse. Tears well up in her eyes, but she quickly wipes them away and walks away in the other direction. We are already strangers, she thinks, but at least they're not enemies. Soon after, Ashley heads down to the lobby where various companies have booths. Oliver asked her to check with one of the partners for details, and suddenly a familiar figure in a dark gray business suit with a Lexontech badge, elegant high-heeled shoes, and a strict hairstyle. Joanna Bartlett herself. Ashley's heart skips a beat again. It takes her a second to pull back and hide behind a shelf. She doesn't want to lock eyes with the woman whose life she ruined, or rather, because of which she destroyed herself. Joanna seems to be talking about something with her colleagues. Is she blowing her nose? No, he rather leaves through their booklets. She still looks unapproachable and confident. If only she wouldn't notice me, Ashley thinks prayerfully. She carefully steps back and bumps into a side partition. At this moment, Joanna turns around. Their glances intersect briefly, like a flash. Joanna's facial expression immediately changes. Her eyes become colder and shrink into slits. Then she turns away, continuing to talk to one of the top managers, as if Ashley is an empty place. But that momentary glance is enough for Ashley to feel like she's been punched in the gut. She doesn't need words to understand. For Joanna, she is nothing, an outcast, a person who does not deserve forgiveness. And perhaps this reaction is the heaviest retribution. Inbrad soon appears at the conference. He teaches a legal seminar on intellectual property rights. Ashley and many former colleagues did not know that he would be there either. He meets Tom in one of the halls. It is clear that both are confused. After all, Brad is Joanna's ex-husband and Ashley's lover, and Tom is Ashley's ex-husband. Too many nodes, but they exchange a couple of cold phrases. "Hello, Tom. I didn't expect to see you here." "Hello, Brad. I'm here on business. How are you?" "Yes, okay, I work in a new company." The tension rises. Tom doesn't want to communicate. He remembers everything that this person did. But there is no aggression anymore. At the same time, he understands that the past year has not been all smooth sailing for Brad either. "Okay, good luck," Tom says, and leaves. Brad sighs, adjusting the collar of his shirt. "We're all in the same boat. We're just rowing in different directions," a thought flashes through his mind. On the third day of the conference, the event ends. Lots of contacts, business cards, general presentations, buffets. Ashley tries to stay away from Joanna, Brad, and Tom. But the soul trembles, as if it had plunged again into the past, from which it had been running all this year. Oliver notices something is wrong with her. "Ashley, is everything okay? You're pale." "I'm just tired," she answers quietly. "Yes, and there are a lot of ghosts from the past around." He nods without asking any further questions. But as they leave the conference, he says in the car, "Look, if you're confused about something, you can talk to me. I'm not only your boss, but also a person who values you as a specialist and—" He falters a little. "I won't go into personal details, but no, I will support you in any way I can." She smiles sadly. "Thank you. The most important thing for me now is just to feel that I am not alone and that I have a future." Oliver wants to say something else, but seeing the tears on her eyelashes, he simply puts his hand on her shoulder. They sit like that for a couple of seconds until the traffic light changes to green. After this, an understanding is cemented in Ashley's soul. Yes, you can't hide from the past, but she still has a new team, new people who are able to accept her for who she is, which means life goes on. For 6 months at the agency, she showed herself brightly. Creative ideas produced results for clients. At a certain point, Oliver promoted her to chief content strategist and increased her salary. Under her leadership, there are now 2 interns, whom she teaches the basics of marketing. Of course, the agency's budget is more modest than Lexontech's, and the projects are not so high profile. But for the first time, Ashley realizes that she can be successful without behind-the-scenes games, without the desire to take revenge on someone. She builds relationships with clients on trust and has become more careful and sensitive to people. It's still hard for her to look at corporate portals, where Lexicontech occupies high positions, and Joanna's name often appears on the list of speakers at world conferences. However, she gradually learns to switch attention to her own path, to her small victories. Oliver and Ashley bond over more than just work. He carefully looks after you. He invites you to the movies, to dinner, and doesn't rush things. Realizing that she has emotional trauma from her previous marriage, he behaves delicately. One evening, they are having dinner at a small restaurant, laughing at funny incidents from Essom, and suddenly Ashley feels good, calm, and joyful. Previously, she confused passion and power, but now she sees that there are other forms of intimacy, soft, respectful, without drama and adrenaline. Could this become love? She asks herself. I don't know yet. But at least she doesn't feel the same vindictive fervor that drove her to Brad. Everything is going well for Tom at Cyberfort. The startup is growing, perhaps a good investment is on the horizon. On a personal note, after almost a year of marriage, he and Sharon decide to move to a larger apartment. There is talk of an engagement, although Tom remains cautious about making official moves. Sometimes at night, he still wakes up from vague dreams where he sees that very scene. Reply to all, shock and collapse. But then he feels Sharon's warm breath nearby, her hand, which seems to say, "Everything is okay, I'm with you." And his heart calms down. One day, Sharon asks, "Tom, you don't hold a grudge against your last wife, do you? Be honest." "There is no anger," he answers after a pause. "More like regret. But I'm glad it ended like this. Otherwise, you and I might not have met." She clings to him. Sometimes tragedies lead to new opportunities. True, the scar remains, but it no longer hurts. Joanna continues to lead the new direction at Lexontech. She became one of the key top managers. Her interviews appear in business publications, where she talks about leadership principles, strong discipline, and the value of integrity in a team. On the sidelines, they say that it is not easy to work with her many leave, unable to withstand the pressure. But the business results are impressive. Personal life? She never entered into any new relationships. There is talk of casual romances, but nothing serious. She spends her evenings alone or with a couple of friends, going away for the weekend somewhere in the mountains, where no one asks about work. Perhaps someday it will thaw, but for now a cold determination prevails in her. No one will make a victim out of me again. Sometimes, looking through competitors' reports, she sees the name Focus Social and laughs to herself, somewhere this is working, and falls silent, not wanting to even say Ashley's name out loud. Then he scrolls further, as if erasing any thoughts. Brad is gradually getting out of his depression. Drinks less. While working at Caldwell and Manners, he proved himself in one case and won a large lawsuit. His bosses noted that he was capable of more if he stopped moping and focused on law. His personal life is empty. There are short affairs that do not bring joy. At one point, he tries to call Ashley, perhaps to apologize or say a few words. But her number is no longer available, and she herself changed her contacts. He understands that their story is over forever. It's a pity that we didn't have time to build a happy romance. We only destroyed other people's lives, he thinks bitterly. But you can't go back. Late autumn is approaching. The rains irrigate the streets of Chicago. The wind tears off the leaves. Heavy clouds appear in the sky every now and then, and the city begins to prepare for winter. On one of these gray days, Ashley returns home after work. She was offered a permanent contract at Focus Social, removing the probationary period, and was also appointed senior project manager. The way up is open. She hopes that will be the case. On the way, she receives a message from Oliver. Would you like to go to the contemporary art exhibition on Saturday? I have 2 tickets. She smiles. Okay, why not? Entering the entrance, she sees an envelope without a return address in the mailbox. He goes up to his room, puts down his bag, and curiously opens the envelope. Inside is plain white paper, a few lines. Ashley, a year has passed. I don't know if I'll ever be able to undo what I did, but I want to say, I'm sorry. I hope you found your way. Brad. She reads it several times, not believing her eyes. A letter written by hand. An irrevocably late apology, but maybe it's better than nothing. The heart beats faster. First reaction, why is he doing this? How did you find out my address? Perhaps he found out through friends. Second reaction, slight relief. It was as if a heavy stone had been lifted from my soul. Thank you, of course, but it's too late, she whispers. She places the letter in the drawer, exhaling deeply. It feels like some kind of circle has closed. Yes, too much pain. But if there is forgiveness, it is only within oneself, not through communication with former accomplices. He sits down in a chair, looks out the window at the endless streams of cars and pedestrians. The noise of the city lulls you to sleep. A year ago, it was at the bottom. Now it is slowly rising. I won't go back to that life, she thinks. I will live better. I will not repeat previous mistakes. The phone vibrates. Mom is texting. Daughter, how are you doing? When will you come to visit? I'll definitely come soon, Mom, Ashley answers, smiling through her tears. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.